Hey guys. Today we'll be recapping the story called The Quiet Game. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, as it really helps our channel. Thanks. Ellie, who has forgotten how to speak, tells about her story. I am Ellie, a human doll made only to listen. Not only have I long since forgotten how to speak, but I was also never properly taught to write. My family members would say things like this to me. Ellie, do you have any idea what that bastard said to me? I've never told anyone about this before, but since you can't speak, I suppose I can tell you. You becoming mute might actually be for the best. I'm Ellie, the mute doll. The only thing I could do was listen to others. Until one day, I started acting as a confidant for three men. Lennon, who enjoys solving riddles. Librato, who has an unusual taste. And Hayden, who is attracted to men. I became their salvation. However, I was slowly drowning in a sea of emotions. Will I be able to escape from this hellish place? That was when I decided I couldn't live like this anymore. Leaving my life as mute Ellie behind, I took on a new life as a countess. Lennon said, Ellie? I'm afraid you have the wrong person. I am Countess Fever. She thinks I am no longer that mute Ellie you once knew. Ellie tells I am a human doll. A doll made solely to never talk and only listen to others. However, I wasn't always like this. It wasn't until I began playing that game. Her dad asked her, would you like to play a game with me, Ellie? When I was about 5, my father suggested playing a simple game. Ellie asked her father, a game? Yes, father. Her father said, good. All you have to do is remain absolutely silent. Simple, is it not? He said, all right then. From this moment forth, you are never to speak but only listen. Suddenly her father starts shouting, that vile baron made a fool of me today once again. I would have long quit if it weren't for my wretched wife and children. This damn family. Ellie gets shocked and thinks, father? Ellie tells, my father worked as a secretary for a baron. However, his job consisted mainly of doing dirty work. Her father shouts, there's only so much I can put up with. How much longer do I have to suffer? Ellie thinks, there's no need to be frightened. This is just a game. Her father said, I feel much better after talking to you about it. You have a gift for sitting still and listening, Ellie. Ellie said, thank you, F.A., but her dad interrupts her, asking in a serious tone, have you already forgotten the rules? She asked, but the game has ended, has it not? Her dad said, to hone your gift of listening, I believe we should continue this game. He said, yes, you see. It's as if you were born to take on this role. She tells, and just like that, the horrifying game never came to an end. Even as time passed, the game never showed any signs of ending, and even my mother and sister decided to join in. That vile bastard. You see, I'm in love with a man who isn't your father. Every day, all I can think about is taking my own life. As if they were confessing to a priest. My family started pouring their anger, troubles, and even secrets onto me. Then, at some point, I forgot how to speak. Ellie thinks, how was I supposed to speak again? She tells, at first, I was devastated. However, my father was delighted, as if he had heard wonderful news. You've become mute? That may actually be for the best. Since I barely spoke much to begin with, becoming mute wasn't as uncomfortable as I'd imagined. More so because I could read and write, though not perfectly, which made things a lot more bearable. What was important was that I remained as mute Ellie for my family. The summer I turned 17, my father proposed a new arrangement. Her dad said, your gift is much too valuable to be kept a secret, Ellie. We should show it to the world and make the best use of it. She tells, even after finding out my father's intentions to use me, there was nothing I could do. I was but a mute who was incapable of disclosing the secrets of others. Not only was I used to listening to others, But if I dared to go against my father, who was the figure of absolute authority in our family, I was afraid that I, too, would be sold off. Her dad said, Ellie, your mother believes your younger sibling died from food poisoning, but the truth is that I sold that child to a slave market. You would understand why I did so if you heard that child's cries. The way that child would cry incessantly for hours. Either way, we didn't have the money to raise a third child. That child is better off living a comfortable life under a kind master than in this gutter. Of course, I was distressed. After all, what father would want to sell his own child? She tells, it was then that I realized, once I no longer become useful to my father, I will face the same fate as my sibling. In all honesty, what could a mute like me do if not this? That's why I decided to do as my father wanted and let others use my gift as well. At least this way, I was helping my father pay off his debt with the money I earned from listening to others. But I didn't know then the people who would be waiting for me on the other end. While traveling to somewhere, Ellie thinks, it's been a while since I left the estate like this. I can't recall the last time I did. My father detested me leaving the house. Before leaving, a lady said to her, Ellie, you can leave the dishes. I'll do them. She thinks, as if they had felt some sort of remorse for their actions, my family rarely made me do any chores. As such, I spent most of my time looking out the window and tending to the garden. Her father comes while she was in garden and said, Ellie? She turns and thinks, so, it's father. Her father grabs her shouting, how many times do I have to tell you not to leave the house? She thinks, why won't he let me go outside? I was curious, but I couldn't dare to go against my father. Meanwhile the carriage stops and she thinks, have we arrived? What do I do now? I can't see anything with this blindfold on. Someone holds her hand and she thinks, a hand? Is this person trying to help me down? She thinks, what an incredibly soft hand. It doesn't feel like the coachman's. Is it a woman? I wonder where they're taking me. The man who was holding her hand said the blindfold was frustrating, wasn't it? She gets shocked and thinks, a man? I assumed it was a woman because of how soft the hand was. The man said, allow me to take it off. He removes the blindfold from her eyes. She opens her eyes thinking, it's bright. Meanwhile she noticed the man and he said, it's a pleasure to meet you. Call me Hayden. Please have a seat. Seeing him she thinks, what a beautiful man. She thinks, based on how he's dressed, could he be from a family of high status? That aside, there's nobody else but us in the room. Seeing him she thinks, I wonder what's bothering him. He looks grim. Hayden said, there's something I'd like to discuss before delving into why I brought you here. He said, I heard you were incapable of writing and speaking. She thinks, I do know how to write, just not very well. But I suppose I should keep that to myself. Hayden said, that is what led me to sign a contract with your father. He said, as much as I feel sorry for putting you through this, what I'm about to say may not leave this room, no matter what. However, I believe you have a right to know the contents of the contract, which is why I bring this up. If my secret becomes known, you shall be killed, assuming that there is concrete proof you were the one who leaked it, of course. She thinks, he talks about killing me without batting an eye. It's as if he's killed a few people before. He asked her, do you understand? She nods her head for a yes. She thinks, everyone has a secret or two. It doesn't matter if you are attractive or plain, rich or poor. And the heavier the secret, the more you want to get this off my chest. The more you are inclined to feel this impulse. Hayden must have sought me out for that very same reason. Hayden said, very well then. I suppose I can now tell you my secret. He said, I believe I am attracted to men. He said, I understand how odd I must seem to share such a secret with someone I've met just today. However, this secret of mine has been eating me up inside to the point where I felt I might die from frustration if I didn't share it with someone soon. Ellie thinks, rather than think he was odd, I felt a sense of sympathy for him. Not over the fact that he was attracted to men, but because he genuinely seemed to be in great pain. However, I showed no signs of being surprised and chose not to take any action other than listen to what he had to say. The reason for that being, in the past, my father once heavily reprimanded me for trying to console him. Her father asked in anger, "Did I ever ask for your shallow consolation?" She thinks, it was then that I realized people who told me their secrets were not seeking consolation but a sense of relief. After that incident, I stopped showing others my emotions. Hayden said, just when I was in so much pain that I was contemplating death. He said, "I heard about you, Ellie." Her father said to someone, "I have a daughter who, Ellie thinks I see." So that's how my father spoke of me. He must have spoken well to have someone of such high social status seek me out. Hayden said, "I admit I was more inclined to your services after knowing you were a commoner. You see, rumors travel fast in high society. However, nobles neither listen to nor believe the words of a commoner. As such, even if you were to reveal my secret to other nobles, your words would fall on deaf ears." He said, "I understand if you think I'm a coward. I wouldn't deny that." She shakes her head thinking, "No, you're not." Hayden said, "Thank you. Where should I begin with my story?" The first time I felt differently about men was 5 years ago at a riding arena. Whoa there! I saw a man wearing a pair of white breeches that clung to his thighs. And in that moment, I felt an uncontrollable sense of excitement. My entire body began to burn up as well. But at the same time, I was overcome by a feeling of immense shame. Certainty of my leanings only grew stronger from that moment, and I would despise myself for getting aroused whenever I saw him. I tried dating women, but it only made it clearer that I was attracted to men. I did everything I could to fix it. As I am the second son, the only way I can become the head of my household is to surpass my elder brother. And to achieve that, I cannot afford to have any tarnishing rumors about me going around. However, I have come to love somebody. I am trapped in a whirlpool of emotions. Every time I see him, I feel as though I have become enslaved by him. Almost as if I were born just to love him. He asked, "What am I supposed to do?" She thinks I looked at him silently, because that was all I was capable of doing. I wonder what love feels like, or what it's like to have feelings for someone. There was a time when I wanted to escape this hellhole. I wanted to live my life solely as Ellie instead of as a vessel my family could dump their emotions into. I never wished for anything special. All I wanted was to speak again and meet other people. I just wanted to live a normal life like everyone else. Her father grabs her saying, "Ellie, well done! The man you met today wishes to see you again tomorrow. Not only that, but another man is also interested in your gift. It appears there are many men who want you, Ellie." Hearing this, she thinks, Hayden requested to see me once again. He said, "Please have a seat. I've been suffering from insomnia for a very long time. Maybe it's because I told you about my secret, but for the first time in a long while, I was able to sleep well last night. I have finally come to realize how liberating it is to share your secret with someone. If only I had looked for someone like you earlier. Of course, the chances of finding such a person are close to zero. There was a time when I couldn't bear the pain of loving this man. And yet I prayed every day that I could kiss him just once. I sound like a hypocrite, do I not? Dreaming about kissing a man despite loathing myself for being attracted to one." He asked her, "Have you ever kissed someone before, Ellie?" She shakes her head for a no. He said, "Then, would you like to try it with me?" He said, "Only if that is what you want, of course. I have tried kissing women in hopes of resolving my problem. Unfortunately, I was unable to feel an attraction to any of them. However, I have a feeling that it may be different with you." He asked, "If it is all right with you, may I sit beside you?" She nods her head thinking, he's being extremely careful with his words. // He sits beside her and said, "Allow me to ask you again. May I kiss you?" She thinks, kiss a man? Even though I've never even talked to one before? Once a man said to her, "Hello there. Tending to the garden, I see." Giving a basket to her, he said, "These were ordered by your mother." Her father comes and shouts, "Ellie! Come over here this instant." She thinks, my father was extremely opposed to me interacting with men because he was afraid I might fall in love with one of them and run away. She thinks, I wonder what a man's lips feel like. She thinks while she nods her head, if I turn him down, I might never know what it feels like to kiss someone for the rest of my life. Hayden said, "Well then." He leans towards her and kissed her. She thinks, oh, so this is what kissing feels like. Hayden said, "If you were a man, I think I might have fallen in love with you." Seeing his eyes, she thinks, I can see the regret in his eyes. Hayden asked, "May I see you again in a few days?" She nods her head while thinking, I want to tell him it's okay. But no words are coming out of my mouth. Hayden starts crying and said, "Oh," even without saying anything. "I can tell you're trying to console me." She wipes his tears with her finger. She thinks, the only thing Hayden is guilty of is loving someone. If loving someone makes you despise yourself to the point where you would want to take your own life, then I don't wish to fall in love with anyone for as long as I live. The next day, her father said, "With the money we're earning from selling your gift, I can soon quit my job of cleaning up after the Baron. Tomorrow, you'll be going to a tavern. There you shall meet another man who wishes to use your gift." While traveling to tavern, she thinks, I wonder what kind of man it will be this time. Seeing as how I'm not blindfolded, I guess he isn't as fixated on meeting in secrecy as Hayden. She thinks, I still cannot believe I kissed Hayden. If someone were to ask if I wanted to kiss him again, a little more, my answer would most likely be, yes. Although I cannot say the same for him. A butler said, "We have arrived." He takes her inside saying, "This way, please." While walking, she thinks, it smells musty. This is my first time stepping foot inside a tavern. There's no one here. Has the man my father talked about still not arrived? Meanwhile, a man comes and said, "Miss Ellie?" Lennon said, "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." Seeing him, she thinks, is he the man my father was talking about? He asked, "So you're the young lady who listens to others?" Sorry if my casual language offended you. If you want, I can speak more formally. He said, "Sit. I can't keep such a pretty lady standing now, can I?" "It's nice to meet you finally. I'm Lennon." He said, "Although there's no way a mute like you could say my name, I figured we still ought to know each other's names, wouldn't you agree?" He said, "You don't have to tell me yours. I already know your name is Ellie from your father." He said, "I heard you weren't born a mute." He said, "In case you were wondering, I heard that from your father as well. I rarely spoke as well when I was a child. Back then, I was extremely fed up with my surroundings and felt incredibly deprived. But I was too young then to do anything to change it. Since nothing changed from speaking up, I simply started speaking less and less." Hearing this, she thinks, I never would have guessed that about him. He laughed and said, "Hard to believe, isn't it? But it's the truth. After all, I have nothing to gain from lying to you." However, at some point, I started speaking, and eventually, I became as fluent as I am now. He asked, "Do you know why?" She shakes her head. He said, "Because if I don't say what's in my heart, or what's in my mind, it disappears. You need to express yourself, no matter what it is. That's the only way it becomes meaningful. If you keep everything bottled inside you like now, it'll eventually make you ill. Which is why I'd like you to learn how to express yourself." She gets shocked and thinks, we've only met today. So why is he being so nice to me? He said, "You're curious why I said that, aren't you?" He said, "I came here with the intention of getting you to speak. After hearing about you, I arranged this meeting to meet you. But I would have never guessed you'd totally be my type. He said, "You're stunning." Hearing this, she thinks, "I've never heard that before." He said, "I have a lot of things I'd like to ask you, which is why I earnestly want you to find the ability to speak again." He said, "On that note, let's play a game together." She thinks, "The only game I know of is the quiet game." He said, "It's called the guessing game. Even though I'm curious about you, you can't answer my questions. Thus, you'll be guessing things about me instead." She thinks, "What an odd person." Before I could even finish my thought, the game had already started. He squeezed her hand, saying, "All right then. The first question. Do you think I'm married?" She shakes her head for a no, thinking, he doesn't have a ring on his finger. He said, "Correct." He said, "I'm not particularly seeing anyone, but there is one woman I see periodically. It's dull to spend endless nights alone, you see." He asked, "Have you ever spent the night with someone before?" She shakes her head for a no. He asked, "How about kissing? Have you kissed someone before?" Hearing this, she paused. She thinks, "Kissing, you say?" Seeing her, he said, "I guess you have. But judging by the look of bitterness on your face, I assume it was with someone you can never be with." She recalls Hayden's words, "I believe I am attracted to men." She thinks, since Hayden is attracted to men, I suppose I can never be with him. Lennon said, My? An unrequited love. How unfortunate." He asked, "Do you mean to say you kissed without even checking your feelings for one another?" She thinks, "I wouldn't really put it that way." He laughed and said, "You look like there is a lot you would like to say. But if you kiss someone without sharing your feelings, I wonder if that means I have a chance at kissing you as well. I don't mean to brag, but I'm a pretty good kisser. What do you think?" He said, "Sorry if that came off a little bold. You remind me of my younger self. I couldn't help it. But I meant what I said. I'd really like to ask if I can kiss you when I see you again. Next time. Let's meet somewhere brighter instead of this musty tavern." He said, "Give it some thought. It's time I took my leave. You'll meet me again, won't you?" While leaving, she thinks, "I'm fully aware that living according to my father's will and not expressing myself will ultimately be the reasons for my demise, as Lennon said. However, I am at a loss as to what I must do to escape my current situation. All I'm doing is walking in circles, unable to move forward. Ever since I was a child, I've wished for a savior who could rescue me from my misery. Could that person be Lennon?" She reached her home, and while opening the door, she hears some voice, "Please." She thinks, "Is that father?" She sneaks inside and gets shocked seeing her father begging to a person. Her father said, "Please give me some more time. I promise to pay you back." The man said, "As much as I'd like to, I'm afraid my patience has run out. If you fail to pay me by next month, you'll leave me with no other choice." The person leaves saying this. She thinks, "My father has dabbled in gambling since I was a child. What started as a casual activity turned into a full-blown addiction, to the point where our family was on the verge of bankruptcy. That is why, to earn money, I started listening to the secrets of strangers instead of only my family's." She moves inside and her father grabs her, saying, "I trust you didn't make any mistakes with the gentleman you met today. There is no room for mistakes. You must fight your every urge to speak. Do you understand? You are our family's only hope, Ellie." She thinks, seeing my father's manic eyes made me realize that if I weren't capable of being used as a tool for making money, I would have been long sold off, just like my younger sibling. While traveling to Lennon's place, she thinks, I enjoy getting lost in my thoughts as I travel in a carriage. I'm able to imagine leading a life that I want, instead of one dictated by someone else. It's as if I can transport myself somewhere else for a while. She was lost in her thoughts while Lennon asked her, "Are you asleep?" She shakes her head for a no. He laughed and said, "Is that so? I thought you had dozed off." He said, "I have a younger brother. He's a man of few words and little affection. Still, since he's the only sibling I have, I can't bring myself to despise him even though he simply loathes me. She nods her head thinking, I understand. I have an older sister too. Of course, she only thinks of me as someone she can dump her negative emotions onto. Lennon said, though he finds me annoying, I try to talk with him whenever I get the chance. Do you know what he says to me then? Go on, take a guess. He said, shut up. Lennon Hills. She thinks he smiles whenever he talks about his brother. Whoever his brother is, I'm envious of him. Would I have fallen for that smile if I were a noblewoman instead of a mute commoner? He chuckled and asked, how about we start our game for today? He asked, do you have an idea of where I'm taking you? She shakes her head for a no. He said, I'm taking you to my estate today. Why, you ask? Well, that's an answer for you to figure out. They reached at their destination and he asked her, we're here. Shall we? She grabs her hand and comes out. Lennon smiled and aid, excellent. He leans towards her asking, how do you feel today? He asked, do you feel like speaking? He said, I'm genuinely curious about your voice. He said, welcome to my estate, Ellie. She starts glancing at her surrounding. He said, the garden is a little bare, isn't it? I'm afraid that's my brother's doing. He said it got in the way of his horseback riding. Come to think of it, Hayden mentioned horseback riding as well. They reached at the door and he said, we're here. Hayden comes out and she gets shocked seeing him. Lennon said, Hayden? Seeing her he gets shocked and Ellie thinks, what is he doing here? Hayden turns without saying anything. She thinks, he avoided my eyes as if I were a stranger. Lennon grabs his hand. He said, hey, how about a greeting at least? Hayden releases his hand from Lennon's hand and starts walking on his way. Lennon said, rude bastard. That's him. My stepbrother. She thinks, at that moment, a thought I shouldn't have had flashed in my mind. Do you know what my brother says to me then? Shut up, Lennon Hills. What Lennon said about his younger brother, and the way Hayden flinched when Lennon touched his hand. Maybe Lennon has something to do with Hayden's secret. They went inside and seeing the portraits of former estate heads she thinks, there are portraits of all the former estate heads. I was right to think they were both noblemen. She noticed their family name, Hills. She gets shocked and thinks, Duke Hills? To think they're both from a family of such high pedigree. Lennon said, could you come over here for a second? Oh, and as compensation for coming all the way out here. He said, I'll pay you extra for your time today. To you, not your father. Meanwhile his stepmom comes and said, Lennon Hills. It's time you stopped playing around with naive young women. Think of your age. How much longer do you plan to keep this up? He asked her, how long have you been standing there, mother? He said, how impolite of you to barge in without knocking. Please leave. Ellie thinks, that's Lennon's mother? But they don't look alike, and she seems much too young. Lennon said, you seem curious. She's my stepmother. We don't share a single drop of blood. That aside, could you change into this? My maid shall assist you. She thinks a dress? The maid said, this way please. After wearing the dress she gets shocked and thinks, oh my. I never knew such a beautiful garment existed. It must cost quite a hefty sum. She opens the door while thinking, why would Lennon give me this? With that thought in mind, I was about to knock on Lennon's door, when I noticed the door was slightly open. Instead of knocking, I decided to take a peek. What I saw then was utterly shocking. Seeing Lennon kissing his stepmom, she gets shocked and thinks, what? What is going on? His stepmom comes outside and said, oh, you're the young lady from before. I'll see you around. Goodbye. Ellie thinks she doesn't seem the slightest bit fazed. It's as if she isn't bothered that I witnessed what happened. Lennon comes and asked, Ellie? When did you get here? You should have knocked. He asked, could you come in for a second? She walks in while thinking, I'm suddenly feeling a little awkward. Suddenly Lennon closed the door and comes close to Ellie and asked, "You saw what happened, didn't you?" She flinched and thinks he knows. He comes close while saying, "Allow me to ask you another question. Do you know the best way to make someone feel defeated?" He kissed her hairs while saying, "Let me tell you, then. The best way to make someone feel defeated is by stealing the thing they treasure most. That is why I kissed my stepmother." Hearing this, she thinks, does that mean Lennon kissed his stepmother to hurt someone who treasures her? But instead of looking happy, he seems sad. She comes close to him and touches his face. He said, "Ellie." She hugged him, thinking, though I may not know the reasons you have for doing this, I hope you won't feel so sad. Lennon sighed and said, "Ellie, I want to get revenge on my father. He killed my mother, so my plan is to steal my stepmother from him. I want him to feel pain so excruciating that he wishes he were dead. I wonder why I am able to share this with you despite having only met you twice. Your father was right. You truly have a gift for listening to others. I feel a strange desire to disclose all my deepest secrets to you." He leans towards her, asking, "Can I tell you another secret?" He said, "I do not enjoy kissing my stepmother in the slightest. She reeks of nauseating perfume, whereas you smell lovely. On that note, allow me to ask you a question. What do you think I want from you at this moment?" She thinks, why is he staring at me so intensely? He said, "A kiss?" He said, "I wish to kiss you, Ellie. If you do not try to free your hand from my grip, I shall take that as permission to kiss you." Ellie thinks, Lennon gave me a choice, and I chose not to break free from his grip. She thinks, I'm curious. Will Lennon's kiss be as soft as Hayden's? I hope Lennon doesn't regret his decision like Hayden did. Meanwhile, Lennon kissed her and then turned, saying, "You may return home for the day. And upon your return home, I would like you to ponder why I gave you that dress." This concludes today's session. When you step outside, my attendant shall take you home. She thinks, am I mistaken? Or did his ears seem red? She walked downstairs while thinking, it's hard to believe that even Lennon, who seems so perfect, has such a dark secret. And to think it was one fostered out of hatred for his own father. As someone who also despises her father, it appears we have that in common. I hope I'll get a chance to tell him that. That aside, Lennon's stepmother reminds me of someone. She could very well be Hayden's biological mother. While heading back to her home, she thinks, I wonder why Lennon gave me this dress. Did he kiss me because he has feelings for me? But his reaction didn't seem much different from Hayden's for that to be the case. Ellie comes back to her home and found her sister shouting, Father, please do not do this. Please do not send me there." She shouts, "Please, father." Seeing her, Ellie thinks, what is happening? Why is my sister? Her sister, seeing her, dashed towards her shouting, Ellie. She said, Father is trying to sell me somewhere. Please help me stop him." She thinks, what? Her father said, Ellie, your sister's marriage partner has been decided. She thinks it can't be. It's too sudden. Just yesterday, my father was begging the creditor because he wasn't able to repay his growing debt from gambling. Oh, I see. Just like how my father sold off my younger sibling. He is planning to pay off his debt by selling my older sister into marriage. Her sister said, Ellie, please help me. Ellie thinks, how long has my sister been begging in the rain? How long has she been begging for the flower bed to cave in like so? Her father grabs her sister, saying, nothing will change, even if you plead for Ellie's help. Now get up. People are waiting for you, Isabel. Her father takes her away and she shouts, Ellie. Ellie shouts in her mind, Isabel. Her sister said, Ellie, remember. Father won't stop at this. You will be next? She thinks, to be honest, I've never had a genuine conversation with my sister before. But she was still the family member I was most fond of. I can't let her go like this. Ellie grabs her father's hand, shouting in her mind, "Father, please don't do this. Please bring Isabel back." Her father said, "I suggest you stay out of this if you do not wish to get married soon like your sister. Just do as I tell you to, like you have for all these years. Understood, Ellie?" She thinks this can't be. Father really sees us as nothing more than money. Will I really be next? Ellie. That night, my mother came home drunk but didn't ask about my sister. Was she already aware that Isabel would be sold? She recalls Isabel's words, "Ellie, remember. Father won't stop at this. You will be next?" She thinks my sister's last words echoed in my ears for a long time. She thinks, I wonder where Isabel was sold off to. Meanwhile, someone enters her room and she raises thinking, who is that? A man covers her face with his hand and puts a knife on her neck. Ellie thinks, is this person here to kill me? I'm scared. But this could be my chance to escape my dreadful reality. I want to be at peace finally. Everyone only wants me to understand what they are feeling. Nobody wants to know how I feel. I don't have a reason to continue living. The man was Hayden and he asked, "Why you are not resisting?" Hearing his voice, she thinks, this voice, Hayden? He asked her, "Why do you act as if you are hoping to die?" He drops the knife saying, "Because I know what that feels like. I cannot bring myself to harm you." She thinks, why isn't he killing me? It was my chance to finally be free. He said, "My full name is Hayden Hills." Hayden Hills and Lennon Hills. So they really are brothers. He said, "Seeing as how you are not very surprised, I take it you already knew my full name. Did you find out when we met the other day?" She nods her head thinking, that's right. I figured it out then. He clenched her hand saying, "I see. Your thoughts were correct. I am indeed Lennon Hill's younger brother." He said, "Since you know my secret, I became anxious when I saw you with my brother that I..." She thinks, although he didn't finish his sentence, it was clear that Hayden was planning to kill me. But why didn't he? She recalls his words, "If my secret becomes known, you shall be killed." Assuming that there is concrete proof you were the one who leaked it, of course. She thinks, he spoke of killing someone so lightly. So why did he not kill me? She thinks, even though you tried to kill me. She wipes his tears thinking, I do not despise you. He flinched and said, Ellie? Meanwhile, someone knocks at the door and she thinks, who could it be? It was her father and he shouts, Ellie. Hearing his voice, she thinks, Father? He said, open the door. Ellie thinks, I'll be in trouble if Father finds Hayden here. She grabs him thinking, I need to hide him. Her father asked, Are you asleep? Her father shows, Ellie. Open the door at once. She hides him behind the curtains and he asked, Ellie? Her father asked, Do you not hear me? Her father opens the door and asked, What were you doing for you to lock the door? He said, Ellie. Are you hiding something from me? She starts trembling. Her father moved towards her saying, I knew you would be awake. He said, You knew I would come to you regarding what happened in the afternoon, didn't you? You certainly know your role well. She thinks, there is only one reason Father would come to see me. He's here to talk about selling Isabel. Her father said, I am so proud of you, Ellie. You are indeed different from your siblings. She thinks, oh no. He's sitting on the spot that's wet. Her father said, Your sister was always easily scared. That is why that mere incident made her so afraid of men. What happened was deeply traumatic for Isabel to dismiss it as a mere incident. As a result of sexual assault, Isabel would tremble in fear at the sight of men. Despite knowing this, Father sold her into marriage solely for his own selfish gains. Her father said, but not to worry. Her new husband will help get rid of that fear. Everything I did was for Isabel's own good. She thinks, what you did was simply to pay off your debt. Isabel didn't want to get married. He grabs her hand saying, Ellie. Listen to what I say and do not look away. That is your role, is it not? Don't worry about Isabel. She will become happy. And thanks to her, our family will now be rich. Finally, I can sleep in peace. He said, "Good night, my dear daughter Ellie." She thinks, he's disgusting. She thinks, how can someone who calls himself a father say such things? Why did I play his game for all these years? At first, I wanted to gain his praise and affection. But this is no longer a simple game. Her father stops and said, "By the way, Ellie." He touches the wet place on the bed. He said, "It appears your bed is wet." He asked, "Is there somebody else in your room?" She starts sweating and thinks, what should I do? Hayden comes out saying, "I decided to stop by. There was a secret I urgently needed to tell your daughter." She thinks, Hayden. He said, "I shall see to it that I inform you of my arrival beforehand in the future." Seeing Hayden, her father said, "Lord Hayden." "Yes, I would appreciate that very much, my lord." She thinks, why is father laughing? Is he happy at Hayden's visit? Hayden said, "Now leave us be. I have yet to finish talking to your daughter." Her father said, "Of course, my lord. However, there is one important thing you must know." He said, "I'm afraid my virgin daughter doesn't serve men at night. Please keep that in mind." Ellie thinks, what is he talking about? He said, "Virgin brides fetch higher prices, you see." She shouts in her mind, "Father!" Hearing this, she gets shocked and thinks, he really sees me as nothing more than a means of making money. She dashed towards outside and Hayden asked, "Ellie? Where are you going?" He comes outside and asked her, "Have you lived your entire life this way? Is that why you didn't avoid my dagger earlier?" He asked, "Did you believe dying would be better than this reality?" Ellie in her mind said, "You're right. My life isn't one worth living." Hayden said, "I can help you escape your father's clutches." Hearing this, she gets shocked. Hearing this, she clenched her hands and thinks, but Hayden said, "Of course, I'm not forcing you to. Take some time to think about it." He leaves and Ellie, sitting on her bed, thinks, is it all right for me to use Lennon's secret like this? I'm not even sure if I can fully trust Hayden yet. Ellie tells, "With those worries on my mind, I drifted off to sleep and had a dream. In the dream, I was fleeing. But I felt a sense of freedom and happiness I'd never felt before." She was sitting in gardens thinking, I wonder what would happen if I escaped this hell like I did in my dream. She starts digging thinking, will anyone come looking for me? Meanwhile, someone comes and asks, "Are you Ellie?" She gets surprised and thinks, I've never heard this voice before. Who could it be? She turns and seeing him thinks, what a burly man. Vibrato said, "Oh, my apologies. My height must make it difficult for you to look up. It's a pleasure to meet you." She thinks, it's my first time seeing this man, but he seems like a kind person. She moves her hand towards him, saying in her mind, "It's nice to meet you too." Vibrato grabs her hand. Meanwhile, he starts staring on her hand. She thinks, why is he staring at my hand? Is it dirty from the soil? Suddenly, Vibrato raised her hand and kissed it. She gets shocked and thinks, what is he doing? She released her hand from Vibrato's hand, thinking, this man is out of his mind as well. Suddenly he bowed and said, "My apologies. Your hand was just so beautiful that I couldn't help myself." He said, "Please forgive me. I swear I didn't do that intentionally. Your father informed me that you have a gift for listening to people's secrets. He said that rude behavior you just witnessed is why I have come to find you." She thinks, so he's also here to disclose his secret to me. Then I guess it's best if we headed inside. Others may get the wrong idea if they were to see. Suddenly she flinched and recalls her father's words from last night. Please keep that in mind. Virgin brides fetch higher prices, you see. Thinking this, she covers her face and thinks, no, maybe it would be better if people got the wrong idea instead. Seeing her, Vibrato asked, "Ellie? Are you feeling all right? You seem a little ill." They went to a cafe and sits in front of each other and remains silent. She thinks, why isn't he saying anything? Vibrato stares up and down. She tilts her head thinking, what is he looking at? Vibrato said, oh, I apologize. It seems I was staring at your hands without even realizing it. He said, to be honest, you have what I consider to be the most ideal hands. Hearing this, she thinks, he's much stranger than I thought. He said, I met your father in a tavern. I had caused a certain incident that day due to my obsession with hands and was lamenting while having a drink about how I was suspended from work. Your father noticed I was having a hard time and suggested I meet you. I can assure you that you will feel much better after meeting my daughter. That is how I made arrangements to see you today. He starts blushing while saying, but I never imagined I'd meet the hands of my dreams here. Hearing this, she thinks, my hands are on the rougher side though. What part of them does he find beautiful? Vibrato said, I understand what you're thinking. What I think makes hands beautiful is slightly different from what others may think. Although this is a little embarrassing to say, a pair of beautiful hands to me are hands that resemble my mother's, who passed away 5 years ago. Maybe it's because I miss her so, but whenever I see a pair of beautiful hands, I have a desire to touch and kiss th. Meanwhile, he stops and said, please don't get the wrong idea. I don't carry any peculiar feelings for my mother. I'm not sure why I'm like this either. He asked, it's your first time seeing someone like me, isn't it? She touches his hand, saying in her mind, it's all right. I've encountered people even stranger than you. Compared to brothers who use their family members for their gains and a father who sold his own daughter to repay his debts. At least you don't think of people as tools. You're much more humane than any of them. Even if your preference may be a little strange, it stems from longing for your mother. She write on his hand. You must have loved your mother very much. He gets emotional and starts crying. He said, why am I crying? He said, you're right. Although I loved both of my parents, I was a little more affectionate towards my mother, who used to kindly pat my head. But I can no longer feel the warmth of her hand again. She thinks, I can't help but feel a little jealous. I wonder what it feels like to be loved by your mother. Have I ever received such love from my mother before? He said, I understand that this is a strange request, but there's something I'd like to ask of you. He asked her, would you please become my master? Hearing this, she thinks, master? He said, I apologize for startling you, but I promise I don't have any ill intent. I have the feeling that if you, who have hands resembling my mother's, become my master, I will undoubtedly be saved. I only ask that you pat my head or let me kiss your hand when you compliment me. She thinks it's a strange request, but if it helps fill the void of his mother, then. Vibrato said, of course, you're free to turn me down if you. She holds his hand thinking, I want to hold his hand for him. Vibrato asked her, is this your way of saying yes? He said, thank you, Ellie. You're the first person to ever accept me. She thinks, he reminds me of my younger sibling, who was sold off. Because they would fall so often, they'd always have to hold my hand. It breaks my heart that they were sold off, just like Isabel was. She thinks, just like how I can fulfill Vibrato's longing for his mother, maybe he can fulfill the longing I have for my younger sibling. Vibrato asked her, if it's all right with you, may I kiss your hand to commemorate this special day? She nods her head thinking, guess it should be fine. He wouldn't do anything strange to me since my hands remind him of his mother's. Vibrato kissed her hand. He said, Master? May I see you again tomorrow? She thinks, tomorrow? Father has always been the one to decide whom I meet. Is it all right for me to give him an answer as I wish? Next morning Ellie was in sleep and Vibrato comes saying, Master. She opens her eyes thinking, who could it be this early in the morning? He said, it's me, Vibrato. I apologize for coming over so early. She gets shocked and thinks, El Vibrato? He said, I'm used to waking up early because of my days as a knight, but the thought of seeing you made me wake up even earlier. She shakes her head thinking, I'm surprised, but it's nothing to apologize for. I don't mind being with someone early in the morning. She raised her hand towards his dress, thinking, that aside, he looks a lot different from yesterday. He said, you noticed. He said, I wanted to look good for you, so I woke up early and dressed myself up. Do you like it? She pats his head, thinking, he really reminds me of my younger sibling. Vibrato said, thank you for your compliment, master. He said, would you like to get ready? I can prepare a light breakfast for us before we head out. She thinks, since father won't be coming home for the next few days, I suppose that will be fine, won't it? He asked her, how did you find the soup, master? She nods her head, thinking, it was delicious. He said, I'm glad you liked it. Shall we head out now? They went outside and he said, the weather today is so lovely. He holds her hand, saying, being able to hold your hand like this makes me incredibly happy. She thinks, oh, I'm happy too. The sound of music playing, children laughing, and the warmth of Vibrato's hand. It's a moment I'd look back upon with fondness when I'm having a hard time. Suddenly they stopped at a place. Ellie thinks, why did he suddenly stop? Seeing Duke Hilly Estate, she gets confused and thinks, isn't this Duke Hill's estate? He said, this is where I used to work. Hearing this, she gets shocked and thinks, what? He said, I was the Lord's right-hand man. Usually, he's easygoing, but he can be cold-hearted when he needs to be. That's why he suspended me the moment I made a mistake. She thinks, that means Vibrato is a knight who works for House Hills. This is beyond a pure coincidence. How is it possible that all three men who came to share their secrets with me are all somehow related to House Hills? He said, my lord may get the wrong idea if he sees us here. Shall we go someplace else for now? She thinks, it's not favorable for me to run into Lennon or Hayden either. After they spent time together, now they were to leave each other as the sun sets. He said, thank you, master. Today's the happiest day I've spent in a while. He kissed her hand, saying, I will remember it forever. He said, I'd like to meet you again tomorrow, but I'm afraid I can't as I must attend a banquet. He said, my lord insisted I attend, you see, even though I absolutely dislike banquets. She thinks, a banquet? She thinks, I wonder if Lennon and Hayden will be attending as well. She comes back to her home and found a letter. Seeing it, she thinks, a letter? The letter said, have you thought about why I gave you the dress? I'll give you the answer tomorrow. Oh. Don't forget to wear that dress when you see me tomorrow. Lennon Hills. Reading it, she thinks, he wrote it only using simple words. I guess it's his way of being considerate. I'd like you to learn how to express yourself. After all, he's such a kind-hearted person. Next day, while leaving, she thinks, come to think of it, father didn't return home yesterday either. The driver said, please hurry. I've been asked not to be late. She thinks, it's rare for him to be gone for so long. She thinks, he's not up to something, is he? She sits inside the carriage and thinks, I'm sure it's nothing. Let's not think about it. These are the streets I walked with Vibrato yesterday. Everything is the same, from the sound of music to the sound of people laughing. If there's one thing that's different, it's... Meanwhile, the driver comes and said, we've arrived. She steps out and Lennon said, hello, my lady. He touches her earrings and said, I've prepared a maid to help you get dolled up, but I see there's no need to. He said, you're already stunning as you are. He grabs her hand, asking, where do you think I'm taking you? She thinks, seeing how he's dressed differently from usual, it must be quite an important place. Is that where he's taking me? He turns towards her, saying, it's fine if you haven't thought about it. You'll find out soon enough. She thinks, where are we going? Suddenly she hears music and thinks, do I hear music? Lennon said, the answer to why I brought you here today is to attend a grand banquet with you. You'll be my partner for today. He said, you can only attend this banquet with a partner, you see. That's why I brought you here today. She thinks, but why? As the Duke's heir, Lennon could have easily brought a better partner than me. He asked her, Would you like to think about why I chose to bring you here with me this time? She thinks, is Lennon trying to make me frustrated on purpose? To get me to speak? He asked her, well then, shall we? Meanwhile she thinks, come to think of it, Lebrato said he was also attending a banquet today. She thinks, I wonder if it's the same one. Seeing them together, everyone gets silent. She thinks, why is everybody staring at us? Suddenly she saw Hayden standing there and thinks, is that Hayden? She squeezed Lennon's arm thinking, is he concerned that I'm here with Lennon? She recalls Hayden's words, all you have to do for me in return is to continue meeting Lennon Hills and promise to tell me his secret. She thinks, as much as Hayden wants to know Lennon's secret, I'm sure he's worried that Lennon might get a hold of his own secret. Meanwhile Lennon whispers in her ear, do not let their gazes cower you, and hold your head up high. He pulls her saying, you are here as the partner of the Duke of Hills's heir. No one here can look down on you. Do not be afraid of their gazes. She thinks, he thinks I'm nervous because of the crowd. Although that wasn't the reason, his words have put me at ease. There's no reason for me to cower in fear. After all, I've done nothing wrong. He whispers in her ear, look. That heartless younger brother of mine is ignoring me today as well. She thinks, fortunately, it appears he has no time to focus on us. He's busy socializing. But he looks awfully unwell. Does he feel uneasy conversing with others? The reason he's interacting with others despite feeling uncomfortable is probably, the only way I can become the head of my household is to surpass my elder brother. To become the next head of his household. On the other hand, meanwhile Lennon asked her, shall we head to the balcony? I think we've shown our faces long enough. She thinks, Lennon is at ease and doesn't feel threatened by his younger brother at all. They headed to balcony while she thinks, if Hayden is here, that means Lebrato should be here as well. I wonder where he is. Lennon said, how amusing. He asked, did you see everyone earlier? He said, even though they chose their partners with great care for their social statuses, in the end, my partner was the person they were most concerned with. Ironic, wouldn't you say? He said, they're all so curious about the partner of the heir to the Duke of Hills. If only they knew you were a commoner. He said, high society is so dull. It's predictable and boring. The one thing that isn't dull is being here with you. He asked, well? Have you felt the urge to speak recently? She thinks, I've had the desire to speak, but what I've been wanting more than that is to escape from this hell. I was able to feel the value of my existence thus far through my ability to listen to other people quietly. It's as if you were born to listen to others. But now that my sister has been sold off, there is no guarantee that I will be safe. What I need the most right now isn't the ability to speak but. She recalls Lennon's word, I'll pay you extra for your time today. To you, not your father. She thinks, money? He said, to think you still do not desire to speak. How unfortunate. He brushed her hairs asking, say, do you have clients besides me? She hesitates hearing this and he said, so you do. He said, you know, I do hope you can quit this job of yours. She thinks, why? He said, I don't want you to think your value comes only by sacrificing yourself. He said, now that I think about it, I've always thought I had to be useful for my existence to be of value. Even without sacrificing yourself, you're valuable just for being you. He said, I trust you. I know you won't give away my secret. She thinks, how does he trust me so much? Even when I received a proposal to reveal your secret. Lennon said, I can tell from your eyes. You have kind eyes, Ellie. She thinks, is that why you're always looking into my eyes? Meanwhile he asked her, can I kiss you? She nods her head and he smiled. Lennon kissed her. He said, I bring this up only because I'm jealous, but can I ask you one question? He asked her, who are your other clients? She thinks, I can't tell him that. He said, I see you won't tell me. Very well. Just promise me you'll only have me as your client from now on. I can give you the money you would have made with your other clients if you want. She thinks, money? That's right. If I want freedom, I need money. She writes on his hand, when will you give me the extra wages you said you would the other time? He laughed and said, how adorable. He asked, did you change your mind after hearing what I told you? She thinks, not exactly, but I do need money. He said, very well. I'll ask you another question, and if you answer it correctly, I'll give you twice what I promised you. My right-hand knight is at this banquet as well. All you have to do is find out who he is amongst those people. And just so you know, he's currently suspended. Hearing this, she thinks, suspended? He said, he's a loyal fellow, but he caused an accident because of a certain obsession of his. She thinks what Labrato said to her. I was lamenting while having a drink as I was suspended from work due to my obsession with hands. She thinks, don't tell me, did Labrato lick Lenin's hand? She thinks, so, Labrato really is here? Meanwhile, she noticed him standing there and thinks, oh, there he is. Meanwhile, he also noticed her. She thinks, did he see me? He comes to balcony and shouts, Master! What are you doing here? Lenin asked her, Labrato? How do you know Ellie? Seeing him there, Labrato asked, Our Lord Lenin? What are you doing here? He said, unbelievable. Meanwhile, Ellie points her finger towards Labrato. Lenin said, well, I feel like I've been played for a fool. He whispers in her ear asking, could it be that my lapdog is one of your clients? She thinks, I know it's best that I keep it a secret. But what should I do now that Labrato has already established that he knows me? Labrato asked, can you not see that you are making my master uncomfortable, Lord Lenin? He grabs her hand and said, Master, please come over. He pulls her, and she thinks, wait. If you pull me that hard, then. Accidentally they hugged and she thinks, here. He starts blushing and said, I apologize, Master. I didn't mean to pull so hard. Lenin said, Labrato, have you forgotten your position? What do you think you're doing in front of me? He said, I apologize, my lord. Lenin glares at him in anger and said, I don't care how you two know each other, but Ellie is here today as my partner. So get out of my sight at once. Labrato said, but. Lenin said, remember that I'm the one who decides when your suspension ends. Labrato said, I apologize, Master. I shall come look for you another time. She nods her head thinking, sure. Though I may have already left for somewhere else by then. We may have tried seeking salvation through each other. But as Lenin said, I no longer want to sacrifice myself. Because salvation is attained not through others but through oneself. Labrato left and Lenin grabs her hand saying, now that he's gone, tell me. He came clean to you about his odd sexual fetish, didn't he? She thinks, what should I do? She glances and thinks, so, right? She writes on his hand, pay me double since I answered your question correctly. He laughed and thinks, is this how she's trying to get herself out of this situation? He said, all right. I have lost fair and square. He said, whenever I talk to you, I feel like I've become a good person. I'm able to forget I'm a shameless wretch who kisses his stepmother. She thinks, but you already are a good person. She tries to speak, even though I'm a commoner, you've always treated me with kindness, and you even worry about my situation. She thinks, as I thought, I still cannot speak. I wanted to tell him that out loud. He asked her, shall we head back now that I've done what I came here to do? I'll take you home. She shakes her head thinking, I have to return home within the time my father had arranged with Lenin, but as the next head of his household, it's only right that Lenin stays here a little longer. He said then, at least let me walk you to the carriage. She thinks, I suppose that's fine. She thinks, I feel like I'm having a sweet dream on a midsummer night. However, a dream is just a dream. It's time I accepted the fact that my reality is not a sweet dream. Lenin said, something on your mind, Ellie? Ellie shakes her head and thinks, no, it's nothing. Lenin said, well, the carriage is waiting for you. Both sat down in carriage and Lenin said to the coachman, let's go. Ellie thinks in her head, this isn't what we agreed on. Get out. While chucking, Lennon said, "Do you have a problem with this? If you do, you're free to tell me. You think I should remain at the banquet, don't you? But that's not what I want. What I want at this moment is to be with you." Ellie's heart raced and she said in her mind, "Lennon." Lennon said, "I apologize if you took that as a profession of my love. As I mentioned, the only time I don't feel dull is when I'm with you." Ellie thinks in her mind, "Why is my face feeling so hot?" Lennon said, "Though I suppose no one knows what the future holds. On that note, would you meet me again tomorrow?" Ellie thinks in her mind, "I feel the same way. I also wish to see you again tomorrow." Lennon squeezed her hand and said, "Thank you." He said, "Your assignment for today is to think about what we'll be doing tomorrow." Ellie thinks, "Another one?" Lennon said that aside, "Have you considered why I chose you as my partner?" Ellie closed her eyes and thinks, "Why did he pick me?" Lennon poked Ellie's cheeks and said, "As I keep telling you, I enjoy being with you the most." He said, "You didn't get the answer this time, but if you guess what we'll be doing tomorrow correctly, you can look forward to a reward." They stopped the carriage at a place, and while handing her the envelope, Lennon said, "Here. It's an amount you won't be disappointed with." And Ellie, Ellie thinks in her mind, "Does he still have something to say to me?" Lennon said, "I talked about many things in the carriage, but what I really want to tell you is that you should live your own life. Life is shorter than you think." Ellie thinks in her mind, "My own life? Do I even have one? But if I were to get the chance to live my life according to my own will instead of someone else's, I'd like to be able to use this money however I want." Next day, Ellie's mom called her. "Ellie, come over here." Ellie thinks it's not like mother to call for me. Ellie walked towards her mother, and she thinks she reeks of alcohol. She didn't always drink like this. When did she first start again? She tells right, "It was the day my younger sibling was sold. It was from that day mother started drinking." Ellie mother in Ellie's memories while crying she said, My child is gone. Don't you want to know where your sister is?" In present her Mantha said, "I saw Isabel by chance on the streets. She was with a fine young man wearing fancy clothing. She said I believe he had blonde hair? Anyhow, he seemed like a noble." Ellie thinks in her mind, blonde hair? Could it be Hayden? No. It's too early to jump to conclusions. I should find time to visit the town square as well. Her mother said, "Go off now. I'm going back to sleep." Someone shouted, banging the door, said, Master, your loyal lapdog has come to see you." Ellie's mother said to her, "When did you start raising a talking dog?" Ellie thinks in her mind, "I'm afraid that's a human man." Last night. Vibrato talks to himself, "Dear Mother in Heaven, I wish my master would become happy." He thinks in his mind, "She's like an angel with beautiful hands. Even after listening to my story, she was still so understanding. I wish she would smile every day." He thinks in his mind, "That reminds me, she was with my lord earlier. She must have met him as one of her clients. Lord Lennon seemed to have taken a liking to her. I wish she'd only be close to me. That's right. I'll head over to her estate tomorrow and cook for her. Then she might end up liking me more than Lord Lennon. If she's willing to be my master forever, she can stop this trait of hers." He thinks in his mind, "If only I hadn't touched the hands of that man known for being oversensitive, I would have been able to earn a large sum of money to give to my master. All right. There's no point in thinking about the past. I just need to think about my master from now on." Standing in front of the door, Vibrato thinks, "I know she has an appointment with another client, but surely she wouldn't shut the door in the face of someone who came to cook her breakfast. I just hope her client isn't that wretched Lord Lennon." Door opens and Vibrato said joyfully, "Master!" Ellie tried to make him quiet by putting finger on her lips. Ellie's mother said while leaning beside Ellie, My, what a burly young lad." Vibrato, while blushing, thinks, "Pardon?" She said, "This old heckler shall get out of your way, so enjoy your time together." Vibrato drops his vegetables bag shockingly and thinks, "Excuse me?" Vibrato asked Ellie, "Was that your mother, master?" He thinks I can't bring myself to look her in the eye. He said you must be starving. I shall start cooking right away. While chopping vegetables, Vibrato thinks it's gotten so awkward after what her mother said. I should try changing the subject. He said, I'm glad your father isn't around. I was worried I'd be turned away. Ellie thinks in her mind that would probably have happened if father were here, but he isn't. Since I'm hungry anyway, there isn't a reason I should ask him to leave, is there? Ellie thinks plus, I did want to try a meal made by Vibrato. After preparing meal, Vibrato said, Tada! All done! I cooked beef stew today. How is it? After taking a sip, Ellie's eyes sparkled and she thinks it's delicious. It's to the point where I think he's more suited to be a chef than a knight. Vibrato thinks this is different from my usual mornings, but I must say it's quite nice. Ellie tells to me, eating was nothing more than an act of survival. To think having a meal with someone could be this delightful. After a while wiping dishes, Vibrato said, to be honest, I had asked your father beforehand if I could meet you today. But he told me you already had a client. Ellie thinks you met my father? Vibrato said yes, he was at the tavern where I first met him. Ellie thinks in her mind I was wondering what he was doing since he hadn't been home for the past few days. Has he been at the tavern this whole time? Vibrato said, oh. Do you know who your client is today, master? It's not my lord, is it? Ellie thinks I do have someone that comes to mind, but... Lennon knocks on the door. Hello there. Ellie thinks so it really is Lennon. I'm glad he got here after Vibrato has left. Lennon said to Ellie, you didn't forget about our promise for today, did you? Ellie in her mind, promise? Lennon said, how, patting Ellie's head, I told you to think about what we would do today, but judging by your expression, it seems you forgot. It's fine. He said, after all, I get to have you all to myself for today. Let's go. Ellie thinks in her mind, come to think of it, Mother said she saw Isabel on the streets. While staring in the streets, she thinks, I wonder if I'll be able to see her today. Lennon said, looking for someone? He said, someone you have an unrequited love for, perhaps? He said, let me know if you need my help anytime. I'm capable of more than you think. Ellie tells herself, I'm pretty certain I'll be able to find where Isabel was sold off to with Lennon's help, but I can't ask him of that. She thinks in her mind, I wonder why. Is it because I don't completely trust him? Or because the man she was with could be Hayden? Lennon said, I'm not forcing you to. I just want you to know that I'm willing to help you if you want. Ellie gapes and said, do I need to give you something in return if I do? Lennon said while smiling, I'll think about that when the time comes. Ellie in her mind, our destination was the Duke of Hills's estate? She tells herself, is it all right for a commoner like me to come here this often? Lennon said, that's all for now. Be on your way. Lennon climbs on horse and said to Ellie, let's ride together. I wanted to ride with you until I started on my work. You see, I enjoy riding to clear my mind. Ellie thinks I have always wanted to know what it feels like to ride a horse, but I've never ridden one before. I wonder if I'll be fine. Both of them sat on the horse and Lennon says to Ellie, no need to be nervous. I'll go slow. Ellie in her mind thinks, I think I understand why Lennon rides to clear his head. She thinks the cool breeze on my face while riding in a quiet area feels so pleasant. Although, I must admit, sitting so close to Lennon is a little embarrassing. While Lennon satyrs at her, she thinks in her mind, stop looking at me and look ahead. Lennon said, are you asking me to look ahead? But I don't want to. Besides, given how slow the horse is going, it's not dangerous at all. But, he said, I enjoy looking at your pretty face more than the dreary garden. Ellie turns her head while blushing and thinks, and there he goes, saying such misleading things again. Lennon said while smiling, your face turned red. Ellie thinks, I feel someone else's gaze on me. Is that Hayden? Ellie to herself, Hayden is looking at us. No, he's looking at Lennon. That man Hayden talked about, could it be? Lennon's butler dashed towards him shouting, Lord Lennon, and whispered to him, will be arriving shortly. Lennon said, what? Already? Ellie thinks in her mind, who are they saying will be here? Lennon said to Ellie, it seems the guest I'm meeting today will be here earlier than expected. Would you like to have a little chat before that? Ellie to herself in her mind while poking Lennon, come to think of it, there's something I've been meaning to ask him. Lennon asked Ellie, yes? Is there something you'd like to say to me? Ellis asks, is there someone you're in love with right now? He replied, I cannot love anyone at the moment. He says, right now, I'm in hell where I can no longer love anyone. Ellie says in her mind, me too. We're all in the same hell. There is Lennon, who cannot love anyone, me, who doesn't know what love is, and finally, Hayden, who is terribly lovesick. If this isn't hell, then what is? Lennon, while puttying Ellie, said it'd be nice if at least you could get out of this hell. Ellie points her finger towards Lennon, what about you? Lennon said, look at how late it's gotten. It's time for you to return home, Ellie. Ellie hears whispers and mutters and thinks, isn't this father's voice? Has he finally returned home? She heard her father saying, is it possible to make one blind without any physical disfigurement? Ellie shockingly thinks, what is he talking about? Someone replied to her father's voice, it may be possible if we carefully extract the eyeballs. If you believe that to be too extreme, we could always consider using poison, though it'd be more expensive. While trembling, she hears, is there a poison that can make one permanently mute as well? Ellie thinks in her mind, he's thinking of turning me blind. Other person replied to her father's voice, why of course. There's a poison that damages one's vocal cords. Her father replied, I see. Can the procedure to extract eyeballs be done tomorrow? The other person replied, yes, it can. Ellie in her mind tells herself, I need to get out of this place. She tells my father, who made a large sum of money by exploiting me, is no longer the same person I knew. At this rate, I'll be stripped of everything I have except my ears and become a tool solely to make money for my father. Someone grabs Ellie's shoulder from behind. She turns. It's Hayden. He points to her to keep quiet and says, let's step outside. Ellie thinks to herself, what should I do now? Hayden said, I'm afraid I heard part of that conversation against my intentions. Allow me to help you escape from this place. He said, why won't you accept my help? While clenching his hands and yelling, he said, do you not understand the situation you're in? He said, I'm worried about your safety. Please allow me to help you. He whispered, please. Ellie thinks in her mind, I know exactly the kind of danger I'm in. The reason I'm refusing his help is because he wants to uncover Lennon's secret by pretending to help me. She thinks I don't wish to betray the first person who showed me kindness. And even if Hayden genuinely wishes to help me, I'm certain he's doing this to gain something out of me. He's no different from my father. Hayden says to Ellie, among all the women I know, you're the one who concerns me the most. He said, please believe me when I say I don't expect anything in return from you for my help. I shall come again tomorrow. I hope you'll give me a chance then. Ellie thinks, should I run away now? I'll take the money Lennon gave me that is in my room. And Ellie's comes to her and said, Ellie? What are you doing there? Since you're here, why don't you say hello to my guest? Her father's guest said, I shall come back tomorrow then. Ellie thinks, tomorrow? Is that the day I will lose everything I have? Ellie's father said, let's head inside now, Ellie. It's become cold at night. Ellie thinks in her mind, I don't have much time left. I need to get out of this hell tomorrow, no matter what. Ellie thinks I can only leave once father falls asleep, but it seems he's still drinking. What should I do? Forget it. Since father leaves for work early in the morning to the Baron's estate, I'll make my escape then. She tells somehow, I feel relieved. It would have been nice if I had left sooner. I thought there was nothing I could do other than listen to others. I believed it was only right for me to lead such a life. She thinks, but I'm confident I'll regret it forever if I continue living this way. She tells, this is my last chance. Even if I'm a doll that's incapable of doing anything, I need to try, at least. All I need to take with me is the money Lennon gave me. She thinks the only thing I have that holds any meaning and that I cherish is the dress Lennon gifted me. After all, It was the first time I tried on and was given such a beautiful dress. But as someone who will be on the run, such a dress doesn't suit me. Little by little, I'll try getting further away from here until I'm out of my father's reach. Those 3 men may try to find me, but all they want is mute Ellie, someone who will not disclose their secrets. It's only right that I end things with them here. Ellie opens her eyes and says, Huh? Where am I? He's the man I saw yesterday. Is he, trying to remove my eyes? She shouted no. While laying on her bed she tells herself, oh, it was just a dream. Wait a second. Did I just say no? She sat on her bed and thinks, was it my imagination? No, I don't have time to be upset over this right now. I must escape today, no matter what. She thinks father should have left for work by now. It looks like I woke up just in time. How walking, she thinks, now that I've packed my money. She heard her father's voice asking her, are you finally up, Ellie? She thinks, why is father still home? Her father said I quit my job of cleaning up after that damned Baron yesterday. She thinks in her mind, what? Now that I'm to become a doll that makes large sums of money, he won't need to work under someone's thumb anymore, is that it? She thinks, how trembling, no. I can't live like this anymore. I have to escape. She tells her sect to act naturally. Her father said, where are you going, Ellie? She points towards the door. He said, are you going to the garden? She tells herself in her mind, since I often spend my time in the garden, I'm sure father won't suspect anything if I. Her father said, I'll come with you. You haven't forgotten to ask for my permission before heading outside, have you? She thinks in her mind, it's all right. I'm sure I'll have another chance. I just have to escape before that man arrives. While working in garden, Ellie thinks he hasn't taken his eyes off me this entire time. I only need him to look away for 1 second. While she was thinking, her mother shouted to her father, Darling! Come in here! He replied, Wretched woman. What is it? Her mother said, it's urgent. Just come in for a second. Hurry! Ellie tells herself, this is it. Now's my chance. While running, she tells herself, just a little more. Ellie heard her father's voice from behind. Ellie? Where do you think you're going? He shouted, Ellie. Her father, while running after her, shouted, Ellie. Stop right there. Ellie thinks in her mind, today's my last chance. She remembers her father's conversation from last night. Can the procedure to extract eyeballs be done tomorrow? She thinks he may execute the plans he made yesterday. If he catches me here, while panting, she thinks I will end up as a doll only capable of listening. I don't want that. She stops running and thinks while coughing, I can't run any further. She hears her father's voice. Ellie! Where are you? Ellie! She tells herself, I can't give up like this. I need to hide somewhere. She saw alley and walked towards it while thinking over there. She stops there and in her mind prays, please, please don't come here, please. She hears her father's voice, Ellie. Your old father can't keep up if you run off like that. While walking away from her father, she thinks in her mind, what do I do? Her father said, now, Ellie, let's go back home. Ellie bumps into someone and says in her mind, a person? Whoever you are, please help me. Her father said, Ellie, that's enough. It's impolite to bother someone you don't know. While crying with fear, Ellie hopes, please, help me, please. Ellie shouted while crying, help me. The other person replied, you want me to help you? The other person asked Ellie's father, are you this young lady's father? Her father replied, yes, we simply had a minor argument. I'd appreciate it if you'd let us be. Ellie shakes her head and tells in her mind, no. Don't believe him. Ellie's father, while rushing towards her, thinks, now's my chance. The other person grabs her father's hand and said she clearly said no. Ellie's father said, she is my daughter. Who are you to interfere in our business? I suggest you walk away while I'm still being nice. Ellie's father think in her head, how brazen for a scrawny fellow. The other person said, oh, is that so? And kicks Ellie's father, and he fell down. The other person says to Ellie, let's go. Are you coming? You're not actually feeling sorry for that poor excuse of a father, right? Ellie thinks in her mind rather than feeling sorry. I feel a rush of relief. Goodbye, father. Ellie walks away with the other person. Ellie, while waking with the other person after watching Carriage, thinks this person is a noble. The other person said, would you like to come with me if you don't have a place to go? Even if you don't want to, it's probably best to ride with me briefly. Your father may come after you again. Ellie thinks, as much as I'm afraid of getting caught by my father, is it all right for me to follow a complete stranger? I don't even know what they look like. The other person asked, are you hesitating because I seem suspicious? After uncovering her face, she said, well, does seeing my face ease your suspicions a little? I promise in my family's name and honor that I won't harm you. Ellie, in shock, thinks, huh? She looks exactly like me. The other person said, do you know your eyes make people want to help you? Even if that isn't your intention, I think your eyes are beautiful nonetheless. Ellie thinks in her mind she does, but her eyes are much more beautiful than mine. Ellie tells, as if entranced by her striking resemblance to me, I found myself riding in her carriage. The other person said to Ellie, you've had a life full of hardships, haven't you? It's all right to cry and let it all out. If you want, I can lend you my shoulder. Ellie thinks while crying, I can feel her warmth. This isn't a dream. After 17 years, I've finally escaped the clutches of my father. The other person said to Ellie, I think fate brought us together today. You see, I've been looking for someone who looks like me for the past few years. What?